Yo, what's up? You need to live in the present, bro. If you're constantly up here in your head, overthinking, depressed, anxious, you're not truly living. And, that's easy to say. You probably heard it on YouTube a lot. Like, live in the moment, be present, be mindful. And, you know, it doesn't really sound like much, but, if you're out here struggling, trying to improve yourself, trying to reach a good way of living, and you're doing that by yourself, this might be actually the insight you need. So let me explain, and maybe it'll make a bit more sense to you. You can't win the battle with your thoughts. There's a lot going on in your head, and pushing everything away, trying to focus, trying to push away them anxious thoughts, them negative feelings, that overthinking, it just puts you in a loop. You're constantly fighting your way through something and overthinking and ruminating, and it doesn't really get you anywhere. You can't force your thoughts away. You can't outthink your way out of a problem. Like, if you're depressed, you can't outthink your way out of depression. Like, you can't solve all the issues in your head. You just need to do. Yeah, and the sad thing is when you're trying to improve on yourself, you're trying to beat your anxiety, beat your thoughts, you can often further isolate yourself. Like meditation, journaling, all these kind of things, in a way they can make your inner monologue, your inner thoughts more complex and more strong. Like for me particularly, when I started journaling, my inner voice became a lot more strong. I felt it throughout my entire day. And that's not a bad thing in itself, but obviously when you have them anxious thoughts, they become more complex, they can become more invasive. Like, recently had the worst panic attack of my life. A flood of thoughts just rushing in my head, and I couldn't really get out of it. I was just swamped. And naturally, my first instinct is to come home, get to my bed, and just start journaling, like start problem solving. I tried to piece together what's happening to me, where I am, what am I doing. But I just couldn't get anywhere. Like, I couldn't really get any thoughts down and figure out what's going on. There was just too much going on in my head. It was the worst panic attack I've ever had. I kind of gave up. I came downstairs. I just felt depressed, and I just decided I'll take a walk outside and just being in nature for a bit. Like, oh, wow, I was just blown away. It was a beautiful day, beautiful sunny day, and I walked outside, and I felt the sun on my face. I looked at the trees, I could see the birds flying, and I kind of snapped out of it for a second. And that's where I realized being present and in the moment is how you beat your thoughts. You beat your anxiety by being in the moment. You can't fight your way out of your thoughts. I said that before. You need to let go. That inner monologue you have that's talking to you all the time, I know it can feel safe. It makes you feel safe. It makes you feel organized. It helps you think things through, protects you, but at the same time as it's helping me go about my day, it's also giving me anxiousness. Like, oh, if someone looks at me the wrong way, my mind will automatically think, this guy doesn't like me, or this guy has it out for me. And that's obviously very negative and affects your life. And it leads to anxiety attacks, panic attacks. I've been trying to go into a lot more social situations, so I have a lot more complexity in my life. And coming home, trying to sleep, I just couldn't get to sleep because all these social interactions I have at night time, that's where they'll all hit me. I'll just start over analyzing them. I'll start thinking through them and trying to figure out what I could have done better, how I could change things. And that is horrible because you're constantly in this stressed state, constantly anxious, and it's just a loop. You can't solve them issues. You can't think your way out of them issues. You just need to live life in the present. And I've said that so many times. This is something I'm just learning, but I'm trying to do in my daily life a lot more. I'm trying to enter that mindless state where everything is just dissolves. Like, inner monologue is kind of gone. I don't need that inner monologue all the time. I don't need to be constantly planning everything ahead and being anxious and thinking about things in the past. Just live life. There's a lot to be grateful for. I know maybe you can't see that right now, but you know, there is a lot to be grateful for. You need to remember where you've come from, you know, and have hope that there's gonna be better stuff in the future. So far it's been going well. Like the other day I was working a shift at my job and I was able to enter that mindless state. I was just calm, relaxed. Normally when I'm on a long shift, my mind can't retreats into itself because it's trying to escape the boredom. It's trying to escape that discomfort of being alone, working. Like I work security, so at the start of the event, the end of the event, there's things to do. Like, oh, people are coming in, people are coming out. I've got to like look at people's ID, all that kind of stuff. But you know, most of the time, nothing's happening. You just stood there. In maybe it's raining outside, maybe it's cold. You know, uncomfortable. You're just a mess, and I'd be so anxious. I'd be thinking about all this stuff. But this time, I managed to just take in my surroundings, just be present. Like, look at the things around me. Like, look at everything, really small details. Like, notice the small details about things, like the texture of the ground, the color of the walls, the way light reflects off certain objects. You know, just finding things to look at, and it's really makes you really grateful for being alive and just appreciate the world around you a lot better. Yeah, so the next step for me is trying to acquire that in social situations and more complex situations, because it's easy to do that when you're alone, when you just sat in your room, when you're just going about your daily activities by yourself. But when you're with other people, you need to be somewhat in your head to think of things to say, to, you know, engage with people. But it's hard not to let that slip into anxiety. Like when I'm talking to someone, I might get worried about what they think about me, you know. But if I'm present, I'll be able to interact much better. I'll be more aware, I'll be more responsive, I'll be more better. And that's something I'm working on, and we'll see how it goes. But, you know, hopefully you took some good away from this, and, you know, I believe in you. Keep going, whatever you're struggling through. You know, don't invalidate what you've been through. Like, I know you're struggling now, but you've managed to get through so much to get to this point, and the fact you're watching this video shows that you're dedicated to yourself. You love yourself to some aspect. You believe in yourself to some aspect, and keep believing in yourself. You can do this, bro. You got this, man. Safe.